So good morning, sisters and brothers. Good morning. Let me thank each of you for traveling to Washington, D.C. this morning, to our nation's capital. And if I may give a shout out for those who traveled the farthest, I'd like to welcome this morning our newest members from continental Micronesia who traveled all the way from Guam to be with us today. You are the front line, you are the grassroots, you are the 99%. Unfortunately, Washington's math is out of whack, and it's dangerously close to being overwhelmed by the 1%. That said, all the money and special interests in Washington can't top what we've got, the power of the people. So I'm here today with a simple message: stand up, fight back. This week you're hearing from some fantastic individuals who represent collectively the 99%. I'd like to think of us and our guests as do-somethings. Unfortunately, too many in Congress today are do-nothings. Are we going to let that slide, or are we going to stand up, fight back?
Stand up, fight back.
The Federal Aviation Administration needs funding from the federal government. What you may not know is that there have been more than 20 extensions to the FAA funding authorization. In other words, for years now, through multiple Congresses, there's been no long-term bill, nor the infrastructure improvements that would also create jobs or the important aircraft safety and health standards, along with other improvements our union has been working so hard to achieve. There's been no commitment from Congress to pass a comprehensive funding bill that secures our nation's aviation system as the safest and best in the world. We're on the brink of losing that critical distinction. Traveling from a new airport in China to LAX, for example, is like traveling back in time, like from the Jetsons to the Flintstones. And you might ask, what's the holdup? Even though you know the answer. House Republicans, doing the bidding of their corporate bosses from Delta Airlines, have been more focused on attacking workers' rights than passing legislation that would create hundreds of thousands of jobs. This time, in the midst of negotiating a final FAA reauthorization bill, a private deal was cut between Republican-controlled House and Senate between the House, Republican-controlled, and our Senate Democrats. Senate leadership agreed to insert language that would gut the Railway Labor Act, the Labor Act that was formed by management union agreement and based on those principles that has not changed in 75 years. This time, there were no conversations with labor. This secret deal on an unrelated labor provision is another attack on collective bargaining. This is our Wisconsin, our Ohio, our New Jersey. Airline and rail workers would suffer significant losses as contracts are jettisoned, collective bargaining rights are cut, and legal hurdles will be placed in the way of gaining voices at work. The provision requires 50% sign-up just to have an election. May I remind you that the Employee Free Choice Act would have provided union recognition with 50% sign-up. There are no lists of employees. Terminated and furloughed employees are counted as eligible voters, and management controls these numbers. In a merger, if the larger workforce is non-union, there would simply be no election to determine representation of the combined group. The union and the contract would simply go away. So today, American Airlines is in bankruptcy, and in fact today, they are presenting the unions what they want to change in their contracts. And today, there's speculation that Delta could attempt to buy American. Delta's bigger. Bye-bye contracts if the House Republicans have their way with this language. There would be no recourse the way this is set up. The National Mediation Board would be totally ineffective, leaving workers with no protections. The details of this language are included in a 4-page document that you have in your packet. But for our work here today, the details don't even matter. Does this unrelated labor provision that attacks workers have any place in an aviation funding bill? No. That's right. It's really that simple. Our message: get it out of the bill. It's no compromise. So let me hear it. Get it out of the bill. It's no compromise. Go tell your senators this simple message. It is simple, but as you're well aware, Republicans and corporate lobbyists will play the PR game. So let me tell you what to expect. Reid and Republicans are falsely claiming this change is about requiring 50% or a majority, up from 35%, to sign union cards in order to call for an election. It sounds so reasonable, but this really has nothing to do with the percentage of cards signed. The rules utilized by the National Mediation Board currently spell out these thresholds. They're not part of the statute. But if this legislation were to be adopted, they would be. This subjects worker organizing to litigation, allowing management to stall union elections and recognition for years on end, and making the worker individual authorization cards subject to discovery. Can't you just see it? Management gets the worker authorization cards and calls the signers in one at a time. So tell me, Susie, did you sign this card here? Susie has a choice in the midst of this intimidation tactic: be honest and face retaliation, or lie and have her card excluded from the count to get to a union election. You and I both know it would never come to that, because no worker would ever sign a card again. So this is really about union busting and voter suppression. And let's be clear, this is no compromise. House Republicans and Senate Democrats falsely refer to this as labor compromise. Senator Reid said it's an effort of Democrats to protect the recent NMB rule change that allows for democratic elections, no longer counting non-voters as no votes for the union. To be clear, labor had no part in discussing this new supposed compromise provision. It's no compromise when one bad piece of legislation is exchanged for an even worse one, and the party affected is not even invited to the table to discuss it. You won't see us call this a compromise anywhere. I am asking for your collective help today. Our merger with CWA is stronger when we all work together. I'm so proud to be a part of an organization with a solid 50-state structure, and we need your help, reaching out as constituents to share the message that inserting an unrelated, controversial labor provision into the FAA Reauthorization bill is unacceptable. This unrelated, controversial labor provision is nothing less than an unwarranted attack by the 1% against the 99% who are simply seeking the benefits of collective bargaining or fighting to hang on to collective bargaining rights. The FAA reauthorization should be focused on addressing the pressing safety issues that will ensure that the U.S. aviation system remains the safest in the world. Instead, Congress has used the reauthorization process to gratuitously attack American workers in order to satisfy corporate bosses like Delta Airlines. Make no mistake, this isn't just about aviation and rail. This is about all of us. The attack on public workers is no different, and the National Labor Relations Act will be next. We have to stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back. Let me hear you.
Stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back. Stand up,
Fight back. Stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back.
stand up, fight back.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Get it out of the bill. It's no compromise. Thank you, sisters and brothers. Thank you, Larry.